so Two Black Guys was happening and popping, and we sort of got into a situation where we changed the business model and grew to a point where we weren't really able to sustain the level of business that we're at without taking on investment or changing again and doing the thing that people call sellout, which a term I don't like to use, but so I made a decision at that point to, if I couldn't do the business the way that I wanted to do it, I'd rather not do it at all. And throughout the 90s, I'd bump into the owners of the co-founders of Roots, Michael and Don.
But hold on, that's like most people wouldn't have done that. So that's not a small
not a
thing.
normal
Like,
thing. Yeah.
why just go all the way? Like, I'm good, I'm out. Like,
For
yeah,
the brand.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, because it was one of those situations where either you double down and go all the way in, or I pull out and say, okay, you know what, I'm good with what I've accomplished here, and there's a new opportunity for me, but I need to divest from Two Black Guys in order to fully sort of maximize my opportunity with this new course. So I like the Don and Michael proposal really came at the right time, sort of the right time in my trajectory to say, you know what, I wouldn't mind changing it up and doing something different right now.
Was there ever a feeling of, I don't want to say guilt, not failure, no, okay, but like, because culturally it was so important to so many different people, did you ever spend, days at home thinking, man, like, what I'm doing is not just about clothing, but it's making statements, it's actually helping facilitate a shift in people's mentalities, you know what I mean, and in their knowledge of self and all the rest of that. Because you got to remember, and for those of us, there's plenty of people in here rocking Two Black Guys stuff. It wasn't just black people that wore Two Black Guys clothing. Like, it was a very influential, important line to so many people. So did that ever, like, you know what I'm saying, especially in the earlier times when you locked it off, did that kind of haunt you at all?
Well, I'll tell you what it was. It's as much a black line as a hip hop line, and my feeling at that time was, here's an opportunity for me to take that essence of hip hop and inject it into a Canadian company in an authentic way that can get out to the entire population. So I thought that I could bring something fresh to a company that was already doing a lot of things well, and help them reach a part of the population in a way that was authentic and still paid tribute to the music and culture that I love, which was hip hop. So that was sort of like, I can do this with Two Black Guys. I can do this with. Let me see if I can do this with Roots.
Okay, sorry, I interjected, but continue on. We're going into
So I started out with Roots in 1999, and had the opportunity, I guess, and good fortune of being able to do a bunch of things that I wouldn't have been able to do with my own company. I mean, we're talking about going from a small sort of ma and pa, even though it's just pa no ma, operation to a multi-million-dollar, multi-store international brand. And it exposed me to a lot, and I actually, I learned a lot, and I grew a lot, both in design and in business, the opportunity that I got to design the Olympic collection for Canada, and then again in 2002 to design both the Canadian and U.S. Olympic team uniforms. So for people who don't remember exactly, I mean, 2002 was the first games in the United States post 9/11. So it was a really, really big deal for the Americans, and patriotism was just like rampant. It was like crazy. So here's this Canadian company who's designing the uniforms for the American team, in the games where they want to make the biggest statement ever, sort of reminiscent of the 1936 games in Berlin. Like, it was on that level in terms of emotion, and everyone was sort of paying attention to, like, so what are these guys gonna do? And at that point, a lot of the media, the fashion media, at least anyway, was saying, why is this Canadian brand doing it? Why isn't Ralph Lauren doing it? They're going to mess it up, and they're going to make us look like a bunch of hosers. So our challenge was to do something that would make the American team proud in a way that was still true to the brand, which was Canadian, and then at the same time design a completely distinct and different Canadian line for our athletes, so they wouldn't feel like, oh, you guys spend all your time and attention paying the Americans. So to design two collections simultaneously that had two very, very sort of distinct needs and you know, 2 crying babies and you had to feed them both. It was a great challenge for me, and you know, you know, whether or not it was a good job or not, I think is really comes down to the numbers. So it was the most successful collection. Up until that point, it was the most successful sports wear collection or sports event collection in the history of like the world. But it takes a machine to do that. So I was a part of the machine. I might have been the part of the machine that put the ideas on paper, but in order to come up with you know, in order to execute something at that scale, you know, you got to give it up to Roots as well. I mean, those guys have, you know, they know what they're doing.
Absolutely, absolutely. So big up to Roots also.